February, but it is decided that okay, let's start with the online mode. And in future, we'll see that this activity, Pune Dialogue, will become one of the major event of the geography on the IIJ platform forever, yearly program, and it will be known all over the country. So that's why we have started. I think this is very historic moment to all of us. Professor K.R. Dikshit himself is a guest of honor. We are the fortunate, we have the Professor K. Padaya, who is the Padma Shri for his contribution to the archaeology, and all the distinguished geographers from all over the country to those are witnessing this first Pune dialogue. So I'm really happy and I'm really grateful for your presence. So I just request to our President of the IIG, Professor Sachidanand Sinha from the JNU. So please give us a welcome your speech on the occasion of the Pune dialogue, sir.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm traveling, although I thought, I'll be joining you on the way, but then I have stopped, and I just wanted to join all of you and welcome all of you to this what we call Pune Dialogue, which has been started in order to commemorate the 50th year of IIG. I think this is a very good initiative by the IIG, and every month or whenever, maybe more frequently, we should be meeting with one or the other important topics for discussion. It is not primarily to be associated with geography alone. Anything which has a contemporary relevance, which the authors would like to share, and we would certainly find listeners, participants who would like to actively engage with the topic. So in this process, I think we have started the initial lecture. We are very fortunate that Dr. Satish Naik agreed to speak on this important issue, evolution of agriculture in India. There are many hypotheses which we all have studied in schools, and maybe even those who continued studying history, ancient history particularly. So we have been confronted with many hypotheses, and the archaeological evidences on some of these issues are very important to be taken into consideration. And I think the lecture today will certainly throw enormous light on the question on evolution of agriculture in India. In fact, in the last few decades, we have been discussing different issues pertaining to our ancient past, and what our botanists and geologists have to contribute on this will certainly add to the volume of information and knowledge. And we are very happy that to chair the meeting, rather we are honored, we have Professor K. Padaya, who himself is a very distinguished person from the reputed institute called Deccan College, from where we had the first authentic text, which in fact is taught everywhere, although it was written way back in 1930s, if I'm not wrong, 1939, The Personality of India by Subbarao. And there is a lot that has been added by Sankalia and others. So I think in that series, we would also like to hear what Professor Padaya has to say on the question of the evolution of agriculture in India, and it would be extremely important for all of us to in fact take note of his views. Professor Dikshit, I don't need to really introduce him. He has been the guiding light for ever since we had IAG, and even without IAG, he has been one of the crusaders in the area of geography, and his active engagement with everything that happens within the Institute of Indian Geographers and outside has been very, very encouraging. And we are very happy to have him this afternoon also with us. Of course, it was his advice that Pune should, and Pune has always been an important center of learning in various ways. And if Pune comes up with some kind of Pune dialogue, which in fact initiates some kind of a debate and discussion, really very fortunate if we could continue with this initiative, which we have undertaken at his behest. So thank you, Professor Dikshit, for joining us. Professor Padaya, we are really greatly honored to have you this afternoon. And Dr. Satish Naik, of course, we're all waiting to hear from you. With this, I would like to invite Professor K. Padaya to kindly agree to chair the meeting this afternoon. Thank you. Thank you, Satish Naik. Thank you, Professor Padaya. Thank you, Professor Dikshit.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Now I request Professor K.R. Dikshit to share your views, your opinion about Pune Dialogue on this occasion. And so over to K.R. Dikshit, sir. Dikshit, sir, you are not audible, sir. Okay, let me check. हाँ क्या प्रॉब्लम है करे Okay, there is some network issue, but they are almost resolving it.
To speak here. Okay. I've been reading to this code. I was talking about I said
Komal.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? All of you?
Yes, sir, you are audible now.
Okay. I was talking about Professor Padaya, he is a multifaceted personality, a genius in archaeology. He has not written archaeology, but a variety of disciplines, especially social sciences. My interest in archaeology was about the settlements, early settlements, and I used to visit archaeology department. That is how I came to know him and developed some kind of friendship. So we are very grateful, and I would like to express my grateful thanks personally to Mr. Padaya for agreeing to chair this session. And I hope that proves to be very auspicious for us, and we continue with this dialogue year after year without introduction. Professor Dr. Nayak, I don't know much, but certainly I knew Professor Kajali, who was doing paleobotany, and he always thought of what he found where and origin of agriculture. Certainly there are books about origin of agriculture. But he used to talk. Someone told, "Oh, do you know a place called Kaldiva?" I said, "No." He said, "Oh, they have found some old rice or something like that." So, but archaeologists, really speaking, earlier it used to be field work and report. Now it has become highly scientific. About it, Professor Raya is better qualified talk than I am. I'm only here to say that we are very grateful to have Professor Raya to chair this session, which is the first session of Pune Dialogue initiated by Institute of Indian Geographers. I'm also thankful to Professor Nayak for agreeing to give us a talk. Let us hope it turns out to be very auspicious and we continue the debate later on. I thank Professor Jayabhai for inviting me to talk for a few minutes. And I thank all others whom I could see on the screen, especially Professor H.S. Sharma. And I don't know whom else I saw. My thanks to them. See about this institute, Professor, about the Pune Dialogue, Professor Sachinand Sinha has already spoken. It's about a couple of years ago that, as you all know, we started this institute in 1979. I would like to recount an incident. When we started the institute, the first or second year, we invited Professor Sankalia, the teacher of Professor Padaya. Dr. Sankalia accepted our invitation and came, and he talked about Ramayana to us and how Ram traveled and the importance of salt trees and so on. It was very illuminating. And we are glad that again have Dr. Padaya here. So, and we have now, as an institute, we have a 45 years of existence. We have a journal which is published non-interrupted, and about which job I can talk much more. And we have not a single number we have missed. So as an institute, I think we are doing pretty well. Thanks to Geography Department, colleagues, people like Professor Jayabhai. I don't think I have to say much, but I express my thanks to all of them. And I especially the people in the department that they should be wholeheartedly a part of all the programs that is being conducted by the IIG. I must mention, Professor, when we had passed this resolution of Pune Dialogue, Sachinanand was there. And he was the one who said, yeah, why not? And let me tell you how this idea occurred to me. You know, the financial experts of the world meet once in a while in a place called Jacksonville in the United States. And they discuss all temporary problems. So I said, why not we can meet once in a while in Pune Dialogue, and we can talk a lot of things about direction of geography, research in geography, where we focus, what is happening, what is most contemporary, how most crucial, how you can do things. And I'm glad that it finally materialized. With these words, I express my gratitude and thanks to all of you who are participating in this debate, in this the first session of the first initial organization or the happening of this Pune Dialogue. Especially, I express my thanks to Professor Padaya, Dr. Nayak, Professor Sinha, and Professor Sharma, and many others who thought it fit to come and be a part of this discussion. Thank you, sir. Thank all of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Dikshit, sir. Now going to the next. Now we'll have a lectures from the Professor Dr. Satish Naik. So first of all, I will introduce the Dr. Satish Naik and then the today's chair, Professor K. Padaya, sir. So Professor K. Padaya is a former director of Deccan College. It's a deemed university now in Pune. At the Deccan College, he is also completed under the supervision of legendary archaeologist Padma Bhushan, Dr. S.D. Sankalia, a PhD thesis in 1968 on the prehistoric and proto-historic culture of the Shoarpur Doab in Gulbarga district of North Karnataka. Professor Padaya held the prestigious Fulbright Fellowship twice. He was elected as an honorary fellow of the Society of Antiquaries, London, and he is a professor emeritus at Deccan College since 2008. His present interest includes historiography of Indian archaeology, study of modern impacts on archaeological sites, and public education about heritage. Professor K. Padaya also spearheaded the introduction of process-oriented new archaeology and other recent theoretical trends in Indian archaeology. He is credited with the introduction of formation processes perspective in the study of archaeological sites in India. For his great contribution to the field, he was honored with Padma Shri title by Government of India in 2021. So I'm really grateful for Professor K. Padaya, who agreed to come here and chair the session and given his valuable time and his guidance to us. So today's speaker is Dr. Satish Naik. He is a distinguished researcher, an academic professional serving as the in charge of the Paleobotany Laboratory at the Department of AISC and Archaeology, Deccan College, is a deemed to be university. In 2012, he earned his PhD in the field of pollen analysis and paleo-environmental studies of archaeological deposits from the Konkan and Malabar coast of India. Naik's work focuses on different regions of India and Sri Lanka, allowing him to reconstruct plant-based subsistence strategies and environment of pre- and proto-historic cultures. He has established academic research collaborations with international institutions such as University College London, UK, then University of Kelaniya, Sri Lanka, and University of Sri Lanka, Jayawardhanepura, Sri Lanka, along with many national institutions and similarly with many national institutions in India. Dr. Naik's notable contribution includes finding the centers of plant domestication and origin of agriculture and the development of new concept of social archaeobotany in India. So this is the contribution of the Dr. Naik. So I request Dr. Naik to please deliver his talk. Over to you, Dr. Satish Naik. You can share your slide also, sir.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
You can start, Dr. Satish Naik, sir. Naik, sir, please unmute yourself. Naik, sir, please unmute yourself.
Audible, sir?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Naik, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Please start, sir.
Yes. Just I'm
Your slide is also visible.
full view, sir.
No, you can go for the presentation view actually, slideshow view.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I
One
think,
minute, sir.
I think you have the two connections, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. One is for Padya, sir,
But if it is the same,
and other is for me, sir.
okay. So you first mute the other one, then I think there will be no problem if you are sitting together.
Yes, sir. One of our students, yeah, there is some problem. There is technical problem. One is
Okay, sir. It is now we can see your complete view, no problem.
Okay, sir. Shall I start?
Yeah,
Some echo is there.
yeah. If there is another instrument, please better you switch off it off.
1 minute, sir. Sound is not. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, please excuse me for a minute.
Okay.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, 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 sir. Please start.
Namaskar. Good evening, all of you. First of all, let me thank Professor Ravindra Daibai, sir, for inviting me to deliver a lecture on evolution of agriculture in India, a geoarchaeological perspective. Here, I would like to give emphasis on origins, plant domestication, origins and development of agriculture in India in geographical and archaeological perspectives. In this Pune dialogue, first of all, let me thank Professor K.R. Dixit sir, Professor Sinha sir, and today the chair, Professor K. Padaya sir, Emeritus Professor and former Director of Deccan College, Pune, for wonderful presence here and all the audience, including professors, students, researchers, for this lecture. We know that the agriculture have been, we know the history of agriculture. Earlier we were in a hunting gathering stage, and the agriculture we have started in Neolithic revolution when we started sedentary way of life. We started domestication of the plants, animals, and then slowly these agriculture crops have been diffused in different areas, and that's how afterwards in Chalcolithic phase and early Iron Age and early historic phase, basically this agriculture has been much evolved, and then presently it becomes a agriculture industrialization. And since 1983, because of green revolution, we have developed some hybrid varieties of the crops, and started using different types of the fertilizers, pesticides, and different water management activities. And now there is, of course, agri business have been started, and this is just in general, but on factual record, if we see it, that is agriculture is a seen a long-term process of fundamental social and economic significance. It comprises the transition from the use of wild plants to the cultivation of domesticated species around 12,000 to 10,000 years ago. It resulted in the transition from the hunting and gathering stage to a settled way of life, which Gordon Child called the Neolithic Revolution. And in this connection, several scholars have proposed different theories on plant domestication, origin of agriculture. Initially, no doubt we had the impact of religious aspects, and many people believed that the today's whatever agriculture is there is it is a gift of God, and that's how it has started thinking. And then, of course, agriculture arose for religious reasons, that for sacrifices more probable for animals. And then basically it has been thinking in the line of genius theory or eureka theory. And if you see the Michener's hypothesis on it, it will be detailed, we can find out. But further, Edgar Anderson, basically he has proposed a refuse heaps that is related to the especially true around houses or cattle pens. Both are also disturbed areas, and Edgar Anderson saw that weeds as a potential domesticates. So they preferred disturbed habitats. Carl Osor felt that man had to be sedentary first. He favored Southeast Asia as the place of origin, but many nomadic peoples grow plants for food. The Near East center clearly did not develop any in tropics. And that's how some scientific theories or environmental theories come into the school of thoughts, and these are some of these historical events to origins of agriculture. Initially, the monocentric origin of agriculture thought in 20th century by George F. Carter, Edward Hunt, and Anderson. And that's how it was started. But the man who first thought of these origins of agriculture, Alphonse de Candolle, in 1882, who wrote a book on origins of cultivated plants based on historical writings, archaeological information, ethnological data, linguistics, and etc. data. So, but furthermore, Nikolai Vavilov, he added some information related to the genetics, chromosome studies, and anatomical data, particularly to the plants. And he proposed the most likely areas of origin where the plants were cultivated and the wild ancestor grew. The areas of origin should be areas in with lot of variations, and he decided 8 major centers of plant domestication in the world. So these are some of these Vavilov centers: Southeast Asia, China, Southwest Asia, Mediterranean region, Central America, and Mexico. These are the Vavilov's centers of early plant domestication and origins of agriculture. Furthermore, Harlan proposed the centers and non-centers, and that includes basically the North Chinese Center, Near East Center, African non-center, Southeast Asian and South Pacific non-center, and then South American non-center and Mesoamerican center. But he proposed that the center of origin often was not the same as the center of diversity, which is a very much important point related to the centers and non-centers of agriculture. So origin of agriculture in West and East Asia, in this way number of theories were proposed by different scholars related to two, basically four questions of two aspects, or two aspects basically. One, that is where and when agriculture have been started, which is basically based on the spatio-temporal aspect, and why and how agriculture has been started, that is the processual approach towards the thinking of origin of agriculture. And since Charles Darwin, sequential chronological theories have been come into the thought in the school of thoughts, and that's how some demographic theories were proposed, some environmental theories were proposed, in religious impetus was also there, and also there were some funny theories. These were not come in the thoughts of school of thoughts. Initially, very Gordon Child, who wrote a book on man make himself in 1936, He was an Australian Marxist and is often viewed as the last Victorian speculative theorist. He still used terms like savages and barbarian. He had made first attempt to adaptation of agriculture and animal domestication, and he saw major changes, evolutionary changes as economic revolution, which is called basically Neolithic revolution. So, he proposed a theory which is called as a oasis theory or propagative hypothesis. According to him, after Pleistocene, last glaciation period, basically human beings, animals, they were started staying together nearby water availability areas, and where they have developed basically symbiotic relationship between plants, animals, and human beings, and there basically this domestication have been started. So this is the schematic representation of Child's hypothesis, and which basically attests that there is a strong relationship between plants, animal, human beings have been developed near oases, near water availability areas, and his hypothesis was tested by Kathleen Conine in at Jericho, and she excavated Jericho and discovered pre-Neolithic occupation, Natufian hunter-gatherers, and two early ceramic Neolithic occupations, that is pre-pottery Neolithic A and pre-pottery Neolithic B. And this Neolithic, this is ancient Jericho Tower and ancient Jericho Tel El Sultan. So this is a very important site which basically further occupied by Bronze Age settlers, and that's how the culture have been evolved in this region. Braidwood, who proposed the hilly planks theory, he has excavated Jarmo in Zagros mountains of the Iraq, and he has come with some hypothesis, that is agriculture have been started in hilly planks of in Jarmo. So in this way, these are the basic things, and he has basically produced the food production and more sedentary ways of life resulted in growth in settlement sites and provided foundation for numerous cultural innovations outside the subsistence. He also proposed that domestication and settled village life were traditionally seen as happening more or less simultaneously, although more recent research shows a more complicated story. So this is the Fertile Crescent, where actually domestication of different types of these crops like barley, wheat, or wild Ankan wheat, and domestication of the cattle, pig, sheep, goat around 10 to 11,000 years BP takes place. So conclusion of this theory is that invention of farming depend on development of human skill and knowledge coupled with suitable environment around 8,000 BC around the Fertile Crescent. The demographic theories from or after 1960s related to the theories of agriculture have been started, and according to that demographic theories, hunter gatherers were forced to adopt labor intensive agriculture. American archaeologist Lewis Binford in 1968 maintained theories on environmental change coupled with sedentarism. I really respect his theories related to the environmental change coupled with sedentarism, because without an environment, culture cannot, suitable environment, culture cannot evolve, and that's what agriculture have been evolved. So sedentary population experienced the population growth and nomadism relaxed traditional constraints on reproductive rates in marginal and semi-arid zones. Hence, incipient cultivation was developed. Then, in this relation, Thomas Malthus, who wrote an essay on the principle of population and its effect the future improvement of society in 1798, he basically mentions that population growth is dependent variable determined by preceding changes in subsistence potential. As population reaches critical threshold or carrying capacity, population growth is a check held in place by some cultural or natural factor like the contraception, infanticide, disease, famine, misery, war, epidemics, etc., etc. So he proposed that basically population growth is dependable variable as there is an intensive agriculture, horticulture, food producing agriculture go on increasing. But Mr. Borsap, Bosarab, basically he proposed that population growth is independent variable. So, according to Esther Bosarab, basically technology will respond when population growth approaches critical threshold carrying capacity, creating demographic stress. Agriculture emerges due to the population pressure, that is demographic stress, and then and the new technology increase carrying capacity. So this 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 is a Malthusian basically dependent variable, and Borsupian basically it is basically red uh, graph basically independent variable. Lewis Binford who proposed a marginal zone hypothesis or model that environmental change in the late Pleistocene encouraged the development of early sedentary villages in areas of rich resources. Inevitable population growth forced some groups to move to more marginal areas, and we should expect to find the earliest evidence of agriculture not in prime areas but in marginal areas where people had to expand their diet breadth. In prime areas, existing technology diet were adequate. And Kent Flannery, who attempted to test the theory of Lewis Binford at Alicosh and later work by Flannery in Mesoamerica, supported Bosarab's idea, domesticated crop long before sedentism. Broad spectrum revolution in 1969 and decreased mobility, increased fertility, and population growth has been uh, adequate, and the increased reliance on large seeded grasses. So this is a- autocatalytic loop, that is serial domestication with demographic growth, which basically moving demographic front. So this is the area where actual domestication of different types of these plants, domestication of animals has been taken place, and all these basically the places or the sites like Abu Hurayya, Jericho, Jermo, Jericho, Jaitun, or Mehergarh. All these sites are located to the foothills, and this is the marginal area where the early plant domestication and origins of agriculture have been takes place. Neither on hills nor on very close to the water, but marginal area where the diversity of the plants is there, where there is a wide varieties of the plants are there, where there is a large seeded crops are there. So Mehergarh is very close to our country, India, and here this is the major region where agriculture have been started at an early dates. So this is the map which is proposed by the Pearson in 2005, which has shown us different types of these crops in different parts of the world. And this area, which have seen in just last slide, that basically barley, beans, beets, camel, carrot, or cattle, dog, duck, fruits, etc., domesticated in this region, and also grapes, hemp, horse in basically Southwest Asia part. And also the oil seeds, onion, rye, sheep, goat, etc., etc. Domestication of crop has been taken place. In north central China, basically apricot, barley, buckwheat, and cabbage, peaches, plums, and soybeans have been domesticated. And Southeast Asia and Southeastern Asia, basically banana, lettuce, breadfruit, or different types of these pulses like green gram, black gram, horse gram, they have been domesticated in this region. Rice is the major part, sugarcane also is a taro, tea, etc., etc., and along with different types of these animals which comprise basically the duck, dog, and other basically pig and zebu cattle and yams, etc. In Africa, basically different types of these millets like sorghum millet, that is jawar, bajra, and finger millet have been originated, initially domesticated and then scattered in Southeast Asia or South Asia. And West Africa basically is dominated by different types of these arrowroot, different types of the gourds, melons, millets, oil palm, rice, yams, and also pig. As far as the Mediterranean region is concerned, this region is a very vast and attached to different countries of Europe and Africa and also west part of the West Asia. And this basically consists of goat, grapes, lentil, lettuce, olives, and barley, cattle, celery, dates, and garlic. These are the important plants and animals. As far as Eastern Brazil is concerned, here beans, Brazil nuts, cacao, peanuts, pineapple, taro, tobacco have been domesticated initially. In Andean uplands, basically alpaca, guinea pigs, llama, muscovy duck, papaya, potato, pumpkin, tomato, etc. have been domesticated in the beginning. And in the Mesoamerican, basically beans, chili, pepper, cotton, dog, maize, manioc, squash, sweet potato, taro, turkey, etc. have been domesticated in the beginning. And North America, basically uh, different types of these, blueberries, berries, different types, blueberry, cranberry, or sunflower, tapri bean, tobacco, etc. And cucurbita, which is not mentioned here, that is also domesticated in North America. Then if we come to the Indian context, basically in India also, that Mehergarh is located nearby uh, western part of the country, and from there, lot of plants have been imported or uh, entered in our Indian subcontinent through Harappan trade. And also in northern India or in western, basically northwestern part of the country, lot of plants which comes from Mediterranean region through Mesopotamia or Harappan trade, it has introduced to the Indian context. So this is the overall map, basically shows some sites, Neolithic sites studied at Deccan College in relation to the plant domestication, origins of agriculture, and development of agriculture. In India, basically the Neolithic phase or dates back to 7000 BC in Gangetic plain, and in Ganga basically it goes back to 7000, and then in Orissa it dates back to the 4000 Neolithic phase, and in peninsular India also it dates back to the 3500 uh, BP, we can say it stretches back to that. And then basically these are the phases of the Iron Age in India, which is around 3000 BCE, and in Northwest India, in pre-urban Indus, basically that there it has existed around 2500 in urban Indus. In Ganga, basically it has flourished like painted graveware cultures or ochre colored culture, and then basically which is followed by Chalcolithic and then early Iron Age and early historic period. This is the in general basically dating period of different cultures since Iron Age. Generally, we when we visit any archaeological site during the course of excavation, we collect soil sample from the stratigraphic level, all layers, put all the soil sample of each and every layer in the water containing tub, and from there we recover archaeobotanical remains, and we study in the laboratory. We try to find out their size, shape, etc., and we identify the seeds like this. Sometimes we find charcoal or burnt wood that we do study anatomical studies. It's we take the transverse section, longitudinal section, radial longitudinal section, and we identify that charcoal belongs to which plant. In cultural phase, sometimes we find pottery brickbats, terracotta beads, etc. And we know that for making and baking, these plant parts are used and their impressions left over we also document. We also document different types of these plants which are growing uh, in a traditional way and in tribal areas in hilly geographically hilly terrain, and we document agricultural practices, traditional agricultural practices which are part and parcel of ancient Indian knowledge systems that we basically document. We have very small laboratory where we process soil samples for pollen analysis and phytolith analysis. And with the help of that, this is the entire process. We actually do on-site flotation like this. We take, we put water sample in a water containing tub, soil sample in water containing tub, and then we collect it with the help of the sieve. We dry under shadow like this by tying with the threads, and then we take, after drying, we take to the laboratory and study under microscope what type of the food grains were there during particular cultural phase, either Neolithic, Chalcolithic, early Iron Age, or early historic phase. This is the proto-historic phase where we get basically mostly grains, food grains, or seeds of the wild plants in a carbonized state. And that's how this is a very important uh, procedure to study ancient agricultural pattern during particular cultural phase. So number of sites have been studied of different cultural phase by my by my sir, Professor MD Kazle sir. He has studied some quaternary sites in Ghodh Valley, Kashmir Valley, Betam Charla in Andhra Pradesh. Some Mesolithic sites he studied Adam, Belilina, Mantai, Sri Lanka, Damdama, UP. And also he studied some Neolithic sites like Budhyal, Vadgal. And Budhyal is very prominent Neolithic site excavated by Professor K. Padhya sir. So he has also studied some Chalcolithic sites in Maharashtra, Apegaon, Songaon, Daimabad, Inamgaon, Nevasa, Kote, Tuljapurgadi, Chikhalda in MP, and Harappan sites like Balathal, Kuntasi in Rajasthan, and number of early historic sites in different parts of the country and whatnot. So these are the some of the sites that I have studied in different parts of the country, and I of these periods like Neolithic phase, Chalcolithic phase, early historic phase, and Iron Age phase and early historic phase. So some of the sites in this region, in Haryana, Karsula, Farmana, Rakigadi, in Uttar Pradesh, basically Agyabir, Jaffardi, and recently Telhara, and in Orissa, Amuda, Subulia, Soberi, Talpada, etc. And the papers have been published. And lot of work I have been carried out in Maharashtra, basically central India. Also in Kerala, Pattanam, I studied for Palynological, and Adi Channallur, I studied for Archaeobotanical, and number of sites in Gujarat. And I found very good evidence of millets in this uh, region. So these are the some of the sites that I have already told you to. I have studied. So entire region of the country is studied, and on the basis of the findings of the crop seeds or crop plant seeds and also wild plant foods, Dr. Saraswat sir from BSIP Lucknow, he has prepared this map and proposed that basically these are the regions, basically northwestern zone of the northwestern part of the country, northern zone, mid-eastern zone, central Gangetic plain, northeastern zone, central eastern zone, and southern zone. Basically agriculture, early domestication might have taken place. So northwestern zone, the sites like Balochistan, Swat, and continuous upper Sindh Valley in Pakistan, there were domestication of the sheep, goat, and cattle with limited cultivation of the cereals in Quetta Valley around 4000 BC. But at Bolan Valley, in Mehergarh, basically a French archaeological mission carried out the excavation from 1973 to 1979 and traced the indigenous process of plant and animal domestication dates back to the 7000 BC. And they found earliest ceramic Neolithic cereals, basically the Einkorn wheat, emmer wheat, hard wheat, two-row barley, which dates back to 7000 to 6000 BCE, and also Haldane naked six-row barley. So wheat and barley, they were domesticated first in this region. As far as this Neolithic Saraikula and Ghaligain Swat Valley, these two sites basically given recent dates like 3100 to 200, 2920, and these sites basically have given evidence of rice, bread, wheat, barley, lentil, field pea, and grape seeds. And these are some of the crop images that rice, soybean, pigeon pea, cotton, peas, and green gram discovered from this region. These are the modern photographs of these plants: wheat, yams, pea, mustard, and linseeds. In northern zone, basically Kashmir Valley, Karevas, Burzum, Gapkaral, recently excavated Sampton site, and there they have developed a ceramic and late Neolithic cultural sequence. A ceramic settlers, they were pit dwellers in this region, and also these pit dwellers are there in a Ganga Yamuna region, and especially in Punjab and Haryana. Pit dwellers have been found in pre Harappan level, and this is the beginning of Neolithic phase or the early sedentic way of life. And they were evidences have been found in relation to the food gathering, hunting, and farming. That is basically it is a agro-pastoral way of life, and a lot of use of stone and bone tools have been discovered from these sites by archaeologists, and that's how wild games of domesticated sheep. These people were dependent on wild games and domestication of sheep and goats. And ceramic settlers used pottery, and late Neolithic phase basically used to overground dwelling structures, built a mud and mud brick farm, and hunting were continued. And as far as archaeobotanical evidence, which basically can comprise dog wheat, bread wheat, barley, lentil, field pea, and I'll be happy to share with you this very important information that all these crops have been introduced. They have taken probably from northwestern part of the country, that is basically from Mehergarh and surrounding area to the northern region. As we know that this modern Kashmir's staple food is rice, but during Neolithic times, they have taken these crops from northwestern part of the country. These are some of the seeds have been discovered from this Burzum. Central Gangetic Plain, it is a very impressive region. It is the most fertile, largest area in Indian subcontinent. There are a number of sites, Chopni Mando, Koldiva, and Mahagara, which shows sequence of transition from the stage of food gathering and selective hunting to settled village farming. And domestication of animals like sheep and goat at Koldiva and Mahagara takes place before 6570 to 5440 BCE. There were evidence of cattle pen, huts of wattle dog, and Neolithic stone and bone tools and faunal remains such as permanent settlement in this region. And that's how the economic of this region was based on hunting and farming. This is one of the very important site uh, excavated uh, in Ganga basin, that is nothing but the Lavra Deva. This Lavra Deva has shown thick deposition of the period 1A, that is Neolithic phase, then period 2, Chalcolithic phase, period 3, basically early Iron Age, and then early historic and medieval phase. And they could able to trace out different types of the domesticated seed plants belongs to the rice, and they have found out number of species of wild rice also, and they have generated data which is the earliest evidence, which dates back to the 8359 years BP, and this date was published by Dr. Rakesh Tiwari, who excavated the site Lahura Deva. So I got an opportunity to study the material from Agabir, which is collected by Professor M.D. Kazlesar, and I got very good evidence of cultivation of different types of these crops from pre-northern black, that is from Chalcolithic level, to the Iron Age and early historic up to the Gupta level period. And these are some sort of these seeds have been discovered from this agabi, which comprise rice, wild rice, and barley. There are two types of the barley, that is naked barley, hulled barley, and lentil. Horse gram, this is a very important seed. Horse gram, which is indigenous, which dates back to the Chalcolithic level. In basically uh, Orissa, we find at Neolithic level also, and it is highly medicinal use. And then basically common peas and other seeds like black gram, green gram, different types of the wild plant foods like Indian jujube, along with the seeds of summer crops and winter crops field. So this is statistical analysis. Northeastern zone, basically, I am really impressed by this region because this region has never affected by any West Asian crops, northeastern zone, and there are very limited sites in of Neolithic phase, but early historic to late historic sites they have been discovered and discovered and excavated, and plants have been documented. This site, this region, as geographically it is a hilly terrain, and there is a still shifting cultivation or zoom cultivation is continuing. Another central eastern zone, basically, it comprises Orissa, and this Orissa is a very important region where geographically the western part is having lot of hills, mountains, etc., and the eastern part is a plain area. To the foothills of these region, lot of plants have been discovered, and one of plant, that is pigeon pea, we have discovered its origin from this region, basically northern Telangana or eastern part of the Chhattisgarh and southern part of the Orissa, that is Koraput forest area. We the discovered the uh, origin of pigeon pea along with scientists from UCL, Professor Dorian Fuller and his colleagues. And this Orissa, if you see this map, this is very important map which shows basically landforms geographically how this western part is hilly and eastern part is having plain. But I propose that to the foothills of this region, these plants have been domesticated earlier and then spread and much evolved in plain area. And the sites like Neolithic sites like Golbai Sasan, Gopalpur, Suabari, where I studied, Sisupalgarh is early INS sites, and Ostapur. Here, this have been spread in early historic phase. This agriculture have been much evolved. So this is stratigraphical sequence basically at Swabari, and basically we find Neolithic and then Chalcolithic deposit with dates. The dates are there. Chalcolithic phase 1300 BCE, and we find very good evidence of different types of these crops. These are the very important dates which dates back to 3160 BP, and around more than 3000 years before Chalcolithic and Neolithic was 3700, around 4000 years that is existed. And this Orissa state have never affected by any West Asian crop or African crop. They have cultivated during till Chalcolithic or early Iron Age phase. They have cultivated their own species of rice. There are 7 wild species still exist in this state. This horse gram, black gram, different types of these millets, and these millets which comprise basically brown top millet, Rhaetian millet, barnyard millet, kodo millet, along with rice and horse gram, they have been cultivated in Chalcolithic phase. So this is the again map has come of Ganga basin, which is I'm sorry, it has come again. So this is the map basically which shows us this western part, this region. Actually, there are different sites, and this entire Gangetic plain shows Lavra Devas is the site located here, which shows basically earliest evidence of sedentic way of life, which dates back to the 7000 BCE. As far as southern zone in southern India, basically caves and rock shelters where the staying places for Neolithic people, and they used this is the earliest phase without metal and handmade pottery. Sites like Utnur, Brahmagiri, Lower Pikliha, Kodekal, Maski, Budhyal, etc. These sites basically shows the evidence of ash mound, that is burning of cow dung, which also shows the pottery like dull burnished grey ware, stone and bone tools and use of copper at Brahmagiri 2 or Sanganakalu, Tekelkota and Halur, which dates back to the 1900 to 1300 BCE, which shows contact with North Chalcolithic culture and use of copper and wheel-made pottery. And these sites have produced a lot of data on different types of these cultivated plants like rice, different types of these millets, as I showed you in earlier sites, very small millets, not like that of the jawar, bajra, or finger millet, but very small. So these are very, very important sites. And one of the sites I studied in Tamil Nadu, that is Adichanallur, where there were secondary burials, and these rice grains were offered to these burials, and I could able to trace out that rice, and these rice were in a fossilized state, and that is actually these are the some of these phytoliths, we can say, the rice covers, and these are the spikelets bases of this rice, and these are some of these pulses. And brinjal, as brinjal is very, very important, and I find a lot of brinjal seeds from different regions and different cultural phases in the country. So we will move to the another region, that is northwestern zone. And in this northwestern zone, basically these all crops like barley, wheat, different types of the peas, gram, etc., and millets, they are introduced to in this region. I will be happy to focus on one of the very important area of Saurashtra, where we studied different sites like Kotra Bhadli in Kutch, Gujarat, and there we could able to trace some barley impressions on the terracotta bead. And we cannot say that this barley were cultivated during late Harappan there, but because of these beads were can be traded from one place to another place. But we find barley grain impression on the bead. And the sites like Dholavira, basically Dholavira, the material was collected by Professor M.T. Kazlesar, and I studied that, and we found very good evidence of food grains of the barley, wheat, and lentil, different types of these uh, bear seeds, Indian jujube, and certain types of these millets also, that is Italian millet or foxtail millet, along with some sort of these uh, Trianthema portula custom, that is vegetable seeds also, and whatnot. So Dholavira is the entry point for Eurasian crops to Indian subcontinent during mature Harappan phase. And in late Harappan phase, the sites like Vijalka, excavated by MS University Vadodara, Professor Krishnan invited me to this site, and I could able to find out different types of the millets at this site and green vegetables, along with the quite lacrima jobi seeds and lot of freshwater shells. And this is very important evidence that small millets have been cultivated in the Saurashtra region. So these are from Padri also. Then from uh, Rajasthan Gilund region, basically we find out some of these evidence of rice during early historic phase and not from Harappan phase. So Rakigadi, Karsola, Farmana have gave very prominent evidence of cultivation of different types of these uh, barley, wheat in early Harappan phase. This is the site of Rakigadi excavated by Professor V. S. Shinde from Deccan College, former Vice Chancellor, and these are some of these crops have been discovered from the site: wheat, barley, or lentil, or green gram, black gram, etc. So from Karsola, again the same type of the seeds have been discovered. And a very interesting finding from Farmana burial is one of our senior colleague, Dr. Veena Mishri, she discovered some seeds from forehead of the small child burial, and we would able to identify it as a onion weed. This is a Mediterranean plant introduced to India through Harappan trade, and I have found that this is located in the only in the Harappan sites which are located in Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, and Gujarat. This plant you will not find anywhere in the rest part of the country. It is highly medicinal plant useful for the cut, burns, etc., etc. And in this way, this Harappan culture, as far as Harappan cultivation is concerned, there our agriculture was more extensive. They followed two agricultural patterns, that is Rabi season and Kharif season, and in that is in a winter season, that is Rabi season, they cultivated barley, wheat, field pea, lentil, chickpea, grass pea, linseed, etc. These are of most of these are plants from of West Asian, and they also cultivated summer crops like rice in pre-Harappan stage, millets in pre-Harappan stage, but black gram, green gram, horse gram, sesame, cotton, these are indigenous crops, and they dates back to the three pages, that is early Harappan phase, which dates back to 3000 to 2500 BC, mature Harappan 2500 to 2000 BC, and late Harappan 2000 to 1200 BC, which gives us a clear idea about vast agricultural practices with management of water for agriculture. And this region is a semi-arid region. Geographically, it is semi-arid region, and receives less water in northwestern part of the country. And there basically these are the all indigenous crops they were growing, and in this way these indigenous crops they were since Neolithic phase, they were there, like rice, kodo millet, little millet, cocktail millet, green and black gram, horse gram, pigeon pea, Indian mustard, sesame, and cotton basically played a significant role in agriculture economy since Neolithic phase, and they have gradually developed agriculture in early and mature phases of Harappan civilization. And through Harappan civilization, some exotic crops from West Asia. This is a very important slide. Barley, wheat, lentil, field pea, chickpea, grass pea, linseed, safflower, and fenugreek have been introduced. From Eurasia, Italian millet and proso millet have been introduced to the country. And from Africa, ragi or finger millet, bajra or pearl millet, jawar or sorghum millet, and cowpea have been introduced. So, change in environment reflected to change on agricultural pattern in late Harappan phase in Indian Indus sites. There are few more sites related to the how change in environment affects on change in agricultural pattern. This is a very important area of Vidarbha in Maharashtra, and I could able to study some of the sites in Vidarbha. And this Vidarbha is a major issue where we have heard lot of news of farmer suicide due to the crop loss and number of problems. But these crops, the change in environment is very much evident in this region. And the sites of the system Vidarbha, basically in Gondia district, Nagpur district, or Wardha district, these are still cultivating rice since 3500 years BP. But this western part of the Vidarbha, like Buldhana, Akola, Amravati, and Marathwada, they have stopped the cultivation of rice since 6th to 7th century AD. And that's how this is some of these cultural pages at Adam, and these are the findings from Adam. which basically shows us the dominance of rice grains. So this region, eastern part of the Vidarbha, from Mali, we got the dates of 3,400 years plus or minus 100 calibrated years BP, and there we could able to find out from excavations. We find lot of seeds of cultivated plant, seeds of medicinal plant. This is the black muesli, and that's how we have studied statistically. Then this is another side, Mahurzari in Nagpur district. There we find a lot of millets and cereals, statistically analyzed. Then this is Kaundinyapur, early iron side, from where we got a lot of seeds, and that have been also listed and dated. And that's how this is another site near Kopadi, Nagpur. There we find lot of seeds and statistically analyzed. And in this way, this eastern part of the Vidarbha and western part of Vidarbha, how it has shifted their agricultural pattern due to change in environment after 5th, 6th century AD, that is shown. So this is the bone site, early historic phase, where a lot of medicinal plant. This is a Shivalingi plant, seeds of Shivalingi, which shows like Shivalinga, highly medicinal, Bhrangaraja seeds, etc., have been documented along with the crop plants of agricultural field. These were statistically analyzed, and that's how, after 6th, 7th century AD, these settlers from this region at the site of Paturda, they shifted from rice cultivation to the Jawar, and Jawar is most suitable for changing environment, and that's how they shifted in this. So around 1160 BP or 1410 BP years, they have shifted that. So this statistically analyzed, and this is also studied in detail. And this is basically comparative analysis. Like during early Iron Age phase, before 3,400 years, the people were cultivating rice a lot, but after 600 AD or 700 AD, they cultivated sorghum bicolor, that is jawar a lot. That basically tells us that the shifting of agricultural pattern due to the environmental change and not any government policies. So some of the observations, these are, as I told you earlier only, and these are some of the observations related to the Vidarbha. And we also document agricultural way of life, basically, and traditional hunting, gathering, or settlement in the hilly terrain, or the tribal peoples, which basically till date they are continuing with our Neolithic past. So I have very great respect for this ethnic group of the people, or the tribal group of the people. They are really living Neolithic way of life, and we are getting a lot of information from them in relation to the traditional agricultural way of life, traditional culture, and traditional use of plants, and also particular geographical area, and for their own welfare. So in this way, this is one of the site from Western Maharashtra, Satara district. We find lot of seeds, and as I told you earlier, the pigeon pea we have discovered from this region. This is a star mark, basically, which Kajanus uh, Kajan, that is pigeon pea, have been discovered from this region along with wild relatives. As we know that every species live with its own wild relatives. Similar way, this Kajanus Kajan have been discovered, and it has been discovered from different archaeological sites in central India, northern India, and southern part of the country. So on the basis of studies on different sites in different regions, Fuller initially documented some of these regions in nearby regions in Indian subcontinent as centers of plant domestication. Like this is the Mehergarh around this area, then Gangetic Plain, then Orissa, then Gujarat, and very vast region of southern India, or the peninsular India. But I will add into it that no doubt this Laura Deva gives earliest date. This Sopni Mando Mahagara from Belan Valley, they gave earliest date. So plant domestication and origin of agriculture, which dates back to the more than 8,000 years before present, that is the oldest record of a sedentary way of life and domestication of the plants and animals. In Orissa and Gujarat, the dates are contemporary, so around 4,000 domestication have been taken place, and in peninsular area region, basically their domestication have been taken place in a later periods around 3,500. So, and this region basically where the Harappa and Punjab and Haryana region is there, Balu and Kunal, these sites, this is the fifth center from where agriculture might have started in India. There is also diffusion of the crops from northern region to southern region of the country and from southern region to the northern region of the country. And these crops, as I stated, exotic crops, how they have introduced to India from northwest entry and around 7,000 BCE and later periods and spread in this peninsular India. But these the plants till early Iron Age phase, the plants which are introduced from northwest part of the country have not reached to the eastern part of the country like Orissa. And from certain type of the millets, basically they have evolved in this region and get migrated towards the north, very small millets. In this way, I would like to propose some of the concluding remarks of my lecture that the biogeography of wild progenitors and archaeobotanical research data show that number of tropical crops were independently domesticated in South Asia as reflected in their occurrence in Neolithic trajectories of different geographical zones in Indian subcontinent. Cultivation may have begun in 5 regions in India such as Ganga Basin, Ganga Yamuna Basin region, Odisha, Saurashtra, and peninsular India before the introduction of exogenous crops. I suspect in peninsular India around Krishna Basin, these domestication have been taken place. My own findings supports local independent domestication took place in above mentioned 5 regions, paying particular attention to archaeobotanical data. Such studies will permit more critical analysis of possible examples of multiple domestications and spread of distinctive variant within crops. They also offer the possibility of improving major food staples and also minor crops for developing alternative crops for marginal areas. This research also highlights the gradual developments that took place in the South Asia from subsistence pattern to surplus agricultural production in response to technological improvements. This is all about agricultural developments, domestication of plants and origin of agriculture. I would like to comment on certain type of the use of medicinal plants since early Iron Age phase, and this research also highlights the use of herbal drug yielding plants which comprise ashwagandha, black muesli, bhringaraja, lollipop climber, punarnava, panicled spot flower, or akkar it is called, or amla, utranjiva, tiger nuts, etc., around 400 to 200 BC. It indicates, in all likelihood, the exploitation of medicinal plants by the early communities to alleviate their illnesses. Onion weed, recorded from Harappan sites of Parmana in Haryana, shows light on introduction from its native Mediterranean region to northwestern India during Harappan trade. The plant remains from Adi Channaluri in Tamil Nadu, coming from earthen urn burials, concerns funerary offerings made to the dead during the early part of the first millennium BC. These grain or seed offerings to the dead give important clues about religious beliefs, social practices current among the megalithic builders. This is a new and important finding in Indian archaeology and prompts me to develop the concept of social. Botanical studies spread over 2 decades have led to a clear and indefinite understanding of both vegetation history and origins and development of agriculture in the central, eastern, western, southern, and northern parts of India. it has also possible to correlate these in some ways with climatic patterns. I very much thank you once again for patient listening to my lecture. Thank you one and all. I wish you all happy Science Day.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Satish Naik, for giving us such an extensive picture and its analysis about its origin and development of agriculture parts of the country. You
Oh
see,
my God,
of-
there is no sound.
see the theoretical framework in the beginning regarding the origin of agriculture, and later on the how the things have been evolved in India, coming with I am whenever I discuss with this Dr. Satish Naik, and I came to know last 15 years or maybe more than that. He has been travel across the India and visited all these places, and he has collected the samples and worked on that, and came to the conclusion that there are these 5 places where the independently agriculture is actually involved. Interesting part is in this geographical settings. Now we are looking to the we are talking about the traditional knowledge. History is mostly, if you look at the history writing in India, it was after mainly started in colonial. So there are different perspectives to the history. Some of the colonial and nationalist, coming to the right approach to understanding our traditions and our development in the Indian peninsula. So I think such kind of the studies will be definitely very, very useful. Nowadays, we are talking about the cultural evolution, human adaptations to the environment, climate change, and so on. So I think such kind of the documentation will be help to establish the opinions, different opinions, which really evolved from the such our own indigenous studies. So thank you, Dr. Satish Naik, for such a extensive. Now we would like to be very much eagerly waiting to the Professor K. Padaya to his chair note on this occasion. Over to you, Professor K. Padaya, sir. Dr. Satish Naik. I'm really happy by the time I think they are trying to be linked with the. Hello, Dr. Satish Naik. So I'm really, by the time I have seen in the audience, I'm really delighted to see very prominent geographer of the country. I will name by the time such as like Professor H.N. Mishra, H.S. Sharma ji, Salahuddin Qureshi Sahab, then Abni Kumar Bhagwati sir, A.R. Siddiqui, Bimal Kar, B.W. Pandey, Ragoswamy, Dr. Sri Nagesh from the Hyderabad, then Sima Jalan from the Rajasthan, then Somnath Ghoshal from the Kharagpur IIT, then Kalpana Malwut from the Baroda, Miss from Gujarat, then Amit Dorde and Avinash from my department, then Shantanu Patnaik, then Professor Jaglan and Professor Rajeshwari Jaglan from Haryana, then R.B. Bhagat, Yalian, then Arjun Musmade, who is our Board of Study Chairman, Krishna Mohan, Y.L.P. Rao, Lokesh Srivastava, Nandakumar Sawant, Anupama Dubey,
They will have some queries. No? Yes, sir. Any questions, sir?
and Sunil Kumar, all these people are there. Now over to no, we are just waiting for the remark of the chair, Professor K. Padaya.
Sir.
Over to you, sir. Then after the Padaya sir's speech, then we'll take the some questions. Two questions.
All right. Yeah. Professor Dikshit, Professor Jaibai, and all others associated with the Institute of Indian Geographers. And good evening to all of you. I'm very happy to be associated with this, new practice called Pune Dialogue. I think this is a very important practice or institution whereby people specializing in various branches of research, can come together and share, ideas so that, research becomes a unified whole. As the saying goes, I mean, research is, learning more and more about little and little. But of course, I mean, knowing more and more about little and little has its own charm. But then ultimately, we have to look at knowledge as a totality. And I think it is from this point of view, this, the idea of Pune dialogue developed by the Institute of Indian Geographers is very, very important, and it allows people to come together from various disciplines and then share ideas. And I appreciate this venture, and I'm very happy that this is taking place on the Science Day. And I will not go into details because there may be some queries about Dr. Naik's lecture. What is important is that if you look at the human trajectory, and it covers something like 3 million years. There are 3 or 4 important thresholds. First is what is called the hominine revolution, whereby our earliest ancestors, branched off from their primate cousins, and then, as Satish was telling you in a very elaborate way, about 10,000 years ago, another major revolution took place, change took place in the human trajectory. That is, the transformation of some of the hunting, gathering communities spread across different parts of the world into what we now call, agricultural, village-based, agro-pastoral way of life. I think this is an important revolution in human trajectory. And in fact, Gordon Child compared it to, in terms of effects, with the famous 19th century revolution, industrial revolution. And these are the 3 important stages in the evolution of human societies. And today, Dr. Satish Naik has given us a wonderful revolution, a wonderful review of the various aspects connected with the food producing or village-based agro-pastoral way of life. In short, is called a Neolithic way of life, and he has given us, a good idea of the various early interpretations which were there about when, where, how, and why this, the Neolithic way of life came up in different parts of the world. And then coming to the Indian subcontinent, he has told us that there are at least, 4 or 5 or 6 major developmental centers where this way of life would have come up. But this is not to say that India remained in the Neolithic revolution as an isolated island, but actually it did take some ingredients, some input from both the western part of the country and also from probably some of the eastern regions, and particularly from the west. The West Asian background is very much there, and particularly cereals like wheat, barley, and probably even core ideas of domestication of animals like cattle and sheep. These could have come. But then once these ideas were borrowed, probably earlier, till about 30 years ago, we used to think that, probably some of these food producing communities from West Asia with their, domestic animals and food crops, etc., pottery, they were actually coming, but probably that's not the case. That is what is called diffusion with the capital D. You see, that people themselves moving, but probably it was only transmission of the ideas, and ultimately these ideas were used with reference to the indigenous materials, whether they are plants, whether they are animals, or other things, ceramics, and that is how, Neolithic way of life came up in the Indian subcontinent. And in fact, as Satish was trying to tell you, there was nothing like, let us say, it all started about 8,000 BC or 10,000 years ago. But there was nothing like one uniform Neolithic or food producing way of life. In fact, there were Neolithic ways of life. And why this diversity? This diversity is very much a part of the influence exerted by the various geographical features. And that is how I think the title of his lecture, in fact, he called it geoarchaeological perspective, but probably instead of geoarchaeological, it should be called geographical perspective. You see, geography is the mother of all earth sciences. It covers, geology, stratigraphy, and geomorphology and all. So, in tune with the geographical diversity of the Indian subcontinent, there were Neolithic ways of life, and probably some of the food plants and animals were the same, but there were local breeds, and I think it is here what we call, this famous concept of unity in diversity. We use it in very commonly with reference to India. See, this concept was already operating right from Neolithic way of life. See, it was all food producing way of life. Cattle were domesticated, sheep were domesticated, wheat was domesticated, barley was domesticated, rice was domesticated, various millets were domesticated, various pulses were domesticated, but there were lots of regional differences. And why these regional differences? And these regional differences were imposed by the diversity Indian geography. And Indian geography is of tremendous diversity. And look at the landforms and look at the ecological diversity. And this ecological diversity is is imposed by the monsoonal rainfall patterns. And same southwest monsoon gives rainfall in different areas in a different way. Low rainfall, high rainfall, and sometimes in going up to 200 inches. But there are areas like the Rajasthan desert where you have only 5 inches or 10 inches, and Deccan Plateau where you may go up to 15 or 20 inches, and areas like the Vidarbha and further east where you may go up to 40 inches. But all these differences, the rainfall, these are reflected in the ecological diversity, and the plant growth varies from area to area. Animal life also varies, and obviously, right from the Neolithic branch, in fact, this happened already in the hunter-gatherer way of life, but in a very nuanced way. But right from the agricultural way of life, this ecological diversity is very much reflected in the in the village-based agricultural pastoral way of life. And this is, I think, the sum and substance of Dr. Nayak's lecture, that already, by about 5,000 BC, already there were different village-based agricultural ways of life. And, different food plants, different, animal breeds, and probably different ceramic patterns, and material culture also varies from. Now, why this is important? See, sometimes queries come up, why you study the past, why history is important. And it is here, the study of the past is very important. Look at the diversity of village way of life in India. As I always used to tell my students, we are visiting American tourists, there is a kind of village way of life in the whole of the country. But we are visiting a cultural anthropologist from America, there are different ways of village village life, different village ways of life. And why this diversity? This diversity is imposed by geographical ecological factors, and this diversity is not a matter of the post-independence period. This diversity is a thing coming from the past, and this can be traced, as we have heard from Dr. Nayak. It has to be traced back, to the Neolithic, ways of life. And I think it is here the past is very important for understanding and coping up with the present. And also, he has told us, how, I mean, already during the Neolithic, I mean, way of life, even the medicinal plants also began to be used. And, see, and like this, I mean, in fact, this concept of social, archaeobotany, that, I mean, India is one country where, I mean, trees are worshipped, plants are worshipped, animals are worshipped, hill ridges are worshipped, rivers are worshipped, caves are worshipped. You see, that once, a human community, begins to make use of these natural resources in a big way, automatically they also develop a kind of reverence and respect to these natural features, be they animals, be they plants, be they rock shelters, be they water springs, be they rivers, be they, be they sea, hillsides. And see, I mean, for all these environmental aspects, there is also a kind of, reverential side. And this is where the importance of social, archaeobotany becomes in there. See, likewise, there can be social archaeozoology. There can be, see, I mean, look at our temple sculptures, images, and lots of animals are there, you see, and some of our gods and goddesses, I mean, these are derived from, animals, see, and likewise, see, so all these scientific branches of archaeology, there is also a human side, there is a social side. So I'm very happy that Dr. Satish Naik has also, I mean, put forward this concept of social archaeobotany. And in other words, study of these, I mean, Deccan College is one center, archaeological center in the whole country, where we not merely study religion and, epigraphs and coins and, images, but, all these studies are being, I mean, supported by various scientific branches, whether it's chemistry or biological anthropology, or, zoology, and in the case of botany, of course, geology and paleontology, and see all these disciplines go hand in hand, go tandem, and ultimately our efforts are to recreate the past in its entirety. And I think it is here knowledge becomes one great composite unit, and we may specialize in this branch, in another branch, but ultimately, see, we all have to come together. And I'm very happy that the Department of Geography of Pune University, and where great geographers, I mean, what late Professor Gupte, and now of course Professor K.R. Dikshit, probably is the senior most geographer in the country, and he has so many contributions to Indian geography, and he has brought the Pune University Department of Geography to a very high level, and including starting the Institute of Indian Geographers and then publishing the proceedings in the journal. See, I'm very happy that the Department of Geography of Savitribai Phule Pune University has taken the lead and is celebrating the Science Day today by organizing, by initiating this new move, I mean, Pune Dialogue. And I'm very happy, I'm very proud that the inaugural chance has been given to Deccan College, and Dr. Satish Naik has been, and I am also very happy. I admire, Professor Sachidananda Sinha. We refer to the work of late Professor B. Subbarao and his famous book, Personality of India. In fact, it is this book. This was published in 1958. Professor Subbarao died a few years later on. So he died very early, at the age of 40 or 41. But it is this book for the first time, geography was brought into the, realm of archaeology, and he divided the country into 3 or 4 zones, nuclear zones, and areas of isolation, areas of semi-isolation. And then, as Professor Sinha said, later on, this idea was captured, and the Deccan College Department of Archaeology has been using various aspects of geography for understanding our past. And with these remarks, I would like to congratulate once again the Department of Geography of Savitribai Phule University for initiating this new move, Pune Dialogue, And I also compliment and congratulate them for giving the inaugural chance to Technical College, and by way of requesting Dr. Satish Naik, he has given an excellent overview of how man began to make use of the plant resources, and particularly coming to the stage of domestication. And he has given you all the details. And with these remarks, I thank you once again for uh, inviting me to be a part of this new dialogue. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor K. Padaya. Definitely, your presence and your guidance and the views you shared on this occasion of Pune Dialogue, it's really a historical moment to us, as this is the first talk of the Pune Dialogue. It will be remembered forever. So thank you, Mr. So now over to Professor Devendra Kumar Naik for the vote of thanks, sir.
But we were supposed to have a few questions.
Or opinion. Yes.
Yeah, we can open the lecture to a few questions. I'm sure Dr. Naik would be happy to clarify any points that the audience may ask.
Yes.
Sir, may I ask?
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Naik, for your fantastic presentation and giving an overview of the Neolithic revolution and the domestication of plants in India. I just wanted to know, because when you summarized, or in the beginning also, said that there were different periods in which the Neolithic is or the domestication of plants came to India. For example, 8000 BC in northwest India, then 4000 BC in Odisha, and then Gujarat, and peninsular India, it was 3500 BC. May I know that, we have a anthropological concept of, peopling of India, the theory, that jet pattern of peopling of India. Does it link with somewhere, the Neolithic revolution with the geographical diffusion of this particular revolution across India? Because you are mentioning different periods of time, and they are somewhere maybe corroborating with that particular period, that particular
Pattern.
jet pattern of, peopling that we generally talk about in India. And there's another question, if I may ask. Uh, in your elaborate presentations, in fact, you talk about different, the sites of early agriculture and all, and then the grains and the plant domestication that has been there. Do you have any evidences of climate change also? Because after all, the crops in those periods were directly dependent on the agroclimatic conditions. Do you have any sorts of evidence related to that? Thank you very much.
Professor Mahabir Jaglan from Kurukshetra. Dr. Naik, please.
Yes. Thank you very much, sir, for your this very informative question. And first, I'll take your second question, that is environmental change, how it has affected on agricultural pattern in particular geographical setup. That is, I will be very happy to say that in Vidarbha region, this change in climatic conditions have affected on agricultural crops. And the very good example is since Chalcolithic time, because in Maharashtra there is no Chalcolithic, but I will take directly the dates. Since 3400 to 500 years ago, they started cultivation of different types of these crops in Vidarbha, and they were continued up to 600 AD, we can say, and that is before 1400 years back. And slowly, gradually, they stopped cultivation of rice, and the farmers shifted their attention towards the cultivation of jawar. And this is a very good example of a change in climate effect on change in agricultural pattern.
To support this, I will give you one of the very good example of Lonar Lake, studied by Dr. Sushma Prasad and other scientists. They have taken collected soil sample from Lonar Lake sediment, and they have studied environment of around 45,000 years ago. And similar way, they have shown that during later Holocene or the later part of the Holocene, around 5,000 years, there is a change in climate. No doubt there are dry and wet phases are shown periodically. As today also we observe some climatic changes, frequent changes are there. But in after 5,000 years, actually late Holocene phase, yes, there is a change in dry and wet phases a lot. But after 3,500 years, prominently it has been seen that there is a wet phase continued from 3,500 years up to the 500 AD. That is 500 AD we can say, or 600 AD. And then the climate has declined. The climatic factors like rainfall, temperature, humidity, these rainfall goes on decreasing, humidity goes on decreasing, and temperature goes on rising. And that is the very good evidence which is affected in this western part of Vidarbha and Marathwada region of the Maharashtra. So this is a typical example of the climate change. Yes, sir. Any more questions, sir?
Sir, the first query that I was.
Sir?
The
Ask
first
the-
part of the question about the Z pattern of movement, I think it was proposed by Subbarao, in which the incursion of culture groups are taking place from the northwest part of the country to the rest of the country, following the riverine routes, which geometrically shaped as the Roman alphabet Z, following all the major rivers of the country. So the question was that does it reflect the same kind of a pattern? It corroborates the diffusion of agriculture. Does it corroborate the same pattern of diffusion on the riverine routes that early cultural diffusion that took place?
Yes, sir. As far as this Sindh Valley is concerned, it is partly right, sir, because riverine routes, they were prominent during this Harappan cultural phase also. And yes, it is partly right, sir. It is also related, Ganga Basin also, it is partly correct that riverine routes have basically played a very important role in the diffusion of the crops from one region to another region, sir.
Okay. So any other question or any observation?
May I have another query if you permit, please?
Sure, sure, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, if you permit, sir. This is my hunch, and maybe could be it could be disputed also. I would like to ask her that do you have any archaeological evidences to connect theoretically or empirically the sedentarization process of the people in North India with the process with the Mahabharata, which was somewhere, in fact, was a process of sedentarization of the people, and somewhere the beginning of agriculture. Is there any link or not? This is my hunch. I may be ignored if this is very foolish question.
Sir, sir, Your question is uh, related to the mythological, we can say Mahakavyas. And actually, recently, I will be happy to share my experience with Mahabharata related site. That is Hastinapur. I worked in Uttar Pradesh. Hastinapur is a very important site mentioned in Mahabharata. And it is Kauravas, Pandavas' capital city. And in 2022, I got an invitation from Archaeological Survey of India to study archaeobotanical remains of that site, which is excavated. The site was earlier excavated by Dr. B.B. Lal sir in 1950 to 1952. And he has tried very hard to unearth some of the evidence related to the Mahabharata. And he found very good evidences of painted gray ware culture, which dates back to the 3000 years BP. And similar way, this time also they excavated the same phase and they got painted gray ware culture. The pottery was very important and very interesting. And people from different parts of the country visiting the site that Hastinapur is excavated. So we must visit and see that. And my friend archaeologist Dr. Divisada Gadnaik, every day he was facing the questions like you, sir, that where is uh, where is Mandapa, where is this jewelry, where there are evidences of this Mahabharata and all. And actually, he got an evidence of the painted gray ware culture and ochre colored pottery culture, which dates back to around 3,400 to 3,200 years BP before present. And he did not find any evidences of Mahabharata. Rather than he asked these questions that will you accept Mahabharata date as 3,000? But these people, they have not accepted that Mahabharata is 5,000 year old. And that's how actually archaeological findings are different than this very important, highly knowledgeable text of Mahabharata, sir.
I think there is Aparna Datta also, I think, raised the hand.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir. I'm a
Good
research
evening.
scholar. Very many information I have got, and my topic is tribal agriculture. I would like to know from the excavation or from the archaeological sites, how could you distinguish between the mainstream or the traditional agriculture and the tribal agriculture? Is there any from the potteries or excavated materials? And second question is, at that time also they were economically, or their practices, agricultural practices are little down from the mainstream. These two questions I'd like to ask.
Yes, madam, whatever we are getting from excavation is a traditional way of living.
Yes, sir.
Archaeologists generally find number of cultural material. We find different types of these plant material. And in like I will give you example of the site that is Swabari, which is I worked in Orissa. There we find a lot of bones of wild animals rather than domesticated animals.
Okay.
Sometimes we find very little evidence of the bow and arrow, but arrow generally we find made out of bones, made out of in iron space, basically iron. So that indicates, and also in excavations,
Yes.
we
Yes.
find like Chalcolithic sites like Harirajpur, we found evidence of the post holes of a round hut.
Okay.
So that indicates their way of living during Chalcolithic phase around 3,300 years uh, from present. So Harirajpur, I have seen physically there these post holes of the round hut, and I have that photographs also. And there, the Swaberi, we find lot of bones of wild animals rather than domesticated animals. That attests that hunting was very much prominent, and it is a uh, you know uh, game of hunting, and that was very prominent during Chalcolithic phase. Like that, in several parts of the country, other parts of the country, still, and if you see that hunting is still continuing, and I have also documented some of these household and agricultural tools from Western Ghat region of the Maharashtra, where the people are now they are getting good roads to reach their habitation or staying places, and there they are demolishing their old houses and constructing their houses with lateritic blocks. And
Okay.
in that phase, I visited and I have collected a lot of household agricultural tools and uh, household and agricultural tools both, and also hunting tools from them. So that tells us that this, since Neolithic past, they are continuing their traditions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you so much. Yes, sir. Uh, Professor Dixit sir want to ask something?
Well, I want to ask, can they hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If Mahabharata time, iron was known, because you archaeologists tell us that from Mehergarh to let us say Harappa civilization, the Chalcolithic existed from 2500 to 1500 BC.
Sir.
And the roads in UP are found only after 1500 BC. Now, could it be that the Mahabharata warriors were fighting without iron? And if they were not, then means their age must be somewhere after 1500 BC. As far as the pottery is concerned, please don't think because you are an archaeologist. We have seen beautiful pottery from Mehergarh, which is close to Quetta.
Yes,
Better
sir.
than find anywhere else. They are not the Greybear party. They are the old Chalcolithic or even earlier 5000. You refer to French archaeologists and their evolution. So the old Stone Age, the New Stone Age, then you have the Copper Age or Chalcolithic Age, and then finally you have the Iron Age, which comes to UP when you have the iron horse. Now, could it relate to Mahabharata? Because I think Mahabharata battle was so prolonged, they must have used iron. Iron
Sir.
bows, instruments, iron. And then, if iron was not known, because see, the great civilization of Indus doesn't have iron, they have only copper or bronze or something else. So, if iron was known only 1500 BC, then how do you fix the age of Mahabharata? Could it be that is after 1500 BC? That's my question. Are you thinking in order? Much of what you say. The second question is about the great controversy about maize. Do you have any feeling whether maize is native of India? Because Northeast people say that maize is a native of India. There was a plant explorer called Kingdon Ward. You may have heard of his name. He was a plant explorer. He only used to identify plants. Also, some of the very oldest species are in the northeast. In the northeast, you can say maize is our original project. I mean, I'm not saying what you say about anything comment on you, but I'm talking first of Mahabharata age, my comment, and the second of maize, which is most controversial. Whether it came from United States, it already existed in India. Thank you very much.
Right, sir. Professor Padaya is there.
Yes, sir.
Also, he's some comment on this.
Sorry? Sir, actually, whatever Dixit sir has asked, that Zaibai sir want to just wants your comments on this question.
No, I could not follow what.
Actually,
I think, see, this, debate or, discussion about, the importance of the epic stories, and then what are the archaeological correlates, to these stories. I think this is a debate which has been coming for the last, 100 years or even more, and it is very difficult to give any conclusive answer for the simple reason that the epics, as we have them today, these are full of, interpolations, and these do not always, carry, the original stories. And as time passes by, and I think it is happening even now, you see, more and more, ideas are added to the epics, and then these are regionalized, But this is not to say that the epic stories are just myths and nothing has happened. Certainly, there is some amount of historicity to the events, spoken of in the two epics, whether it is Ramayana or the Mahabharata. But then what exactly is the texture of this historicity? When these really happened, what exactly took place? I think, there is a lot of accretion and a lot of, accumulation of later ideas. And archaeology, to some extent, has been successful in locating some evidence, but not real, full-fledged evidence. And for example, my teacher, Professor Sankalia, spent quite some time after retirement in looking at the archaeological correlations for Mahabharata story, and then he came out with the idea. The Lanka of Ramayana is not really the Lanka of Sri Lanka of the present day, but probably it was a small island in a major lake in the central part of the country, somewhere in the Chhattisgarh area. But of course, not many people accept it. But I think what is important is the Mahabharata or Ramayana stories, these, have a lot of later accretions, and we have to be extremely careful when we, want to look at the real historicity. But this is not to say that the core Mahabharata, event did not take place. The core Ramayana event did not take place. There were, and the only thing is we have sort of, these epic stories, they have gone into the bloodstream of the Indian society to such an extent that many of these epic heroes, heroines, they have been deified, they have been made into gods, goddesses. And then, we generally don't want to look at the core historicity. And after all these figures, which are, they're parading the two epics, they were human beings, The hero Krishna was a human being. He was born on the earth and he died, But then we have deified them. Rama was the son of Dasarath. He was born in Ayodhya. Of course, he did some wonderful things. And then ultimately he died, So these were all human beings. And Indian, tradition of imagination is such, that we have a tendency, whenever we find something is very useful, some person has done some very good thing, we have a tendency to make them into idols, and sometimes we defy them. No, I think the best example in the modern India is, Sai Baba, Sai Baba of Shirdi. And I have seen some actual photographs of Sai Baba. He was a saint, and he was, but that, we have made them into a deity, and he is now worshipped, with so much of gold and adorning him, wonderful robes. And I think it is here we have to be extremely careful when we have to look at the stories in the two epics, or, the stories which are there in the Puranas and, other ancient Indian texts. And we have to be extremely careful when we want to ascertain the degree of historicity. But this is not to say that, all these ancient texts, they are all trash. No, not at all. You see, they have their own importance, they have a degree of historicity. But the most important thing, when we deal with these ancient texts, is these are great texts, and they all have a message, to convey to us. See, and to that extent, Ramayana is an idol, Mahabharata is an idol, Puranas are idol, Upanishads are an idol, Bhagavad Gita is an idol. Idol in the sense that, that these texts have an important message to convey to the society. And these, the idols have some, important values to convey to us. And I think it is this, spirit which the common man in India has really, grasped. And that is how, these, epic texts and Puranas and Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita, they have played an important role. But see, the degree of historicity in these things, is something which has to be very, very careful when we talk about it. And I don't want to say that there is no historicity at all in these events. There is some degree of historicity, but not in the way, these are described in the texts which we have them. The Mahabharata we have with us today, Ramayana we have with us today, the Puranas, and see, and but I think there is a lot of accretion, a lot of exaggeration, a lot of imagination, and see. But most important thing, I think this is what we have to really understand, particularly these days when we are talking about, our cultural heritage and religious heritage. What is important is these ancient texts and even the oral traditions, they have, ennobled, not enabled, they have ennobled, they have made the Indian minds very, very noble. And in the sense that the values that are there ingrained in these ancient texts, they have gone into the minds of the Indian society. And that's how people behave in a sort of harmonious way. You see, whatever may be the level of poverty or whatever. But if you go to the, Indian countryside, people, you see, are, in spite of their, sort of poor way of living, but still they are very happy persons, and, and they behave well. Even when a stranger goes to the village, they don't shun them. You see, on the other hand, they invite them. Cook, you see, have a cup of tea with us, have a cup of, you see, milk with us. Or, this is what is, you see. Why? You see, this enabled minds are actually, you see, the legacy of the influence of the values which they have imbibed from these ancient texts. And they are not so much interested in looking at the historicity of when Rama lived and, say, when Krishna lived and, what kind of robes they were. They're not really bothered about it. You see. I think this is something very, very important when we look at the contemporary use of, or sometimes I say misuse of our heritage. I think, this is, what I can say from my understanding of the work that has been done. Trying to make correlations between the epic stories and the archaeological, evidence. This is, I think, my personal view.
Thank you, sir.
Naik sir, I think.
Thank
Yes,
you. I think there are no more questions, nor we can take any more. It's getting time to say goodbye to all of you. It has been a wonderful evening where we could hear an exciting topic, evolution of agriculture in India, a geoarchaeological perspective with a heavy dose of geography, as Professor uh, Padam Sri K. Padaya from Deccan College spoke. I'm very happy, sir, particularly to, we are all grateful to Professor Sri Padma Sri K. Padaya, sir, Emeritus Professor of Deccan College, who very kindly agreed to chair this session and enlighten us with so many information about the importance of archaeology and archaeological evidences which enrich particularly geography. Your words are very good, sir. We appreciate your concern, your regards for the discipline to which many of us belong to, that is geography, and how important geography has been in a better understanding of geography of the social reality in India. In fact, most geographers, particularly younger geographers, are introduced to the beautiful world of archaeology through social and historical geography, which is now becoming far more common in many departments of geography. And we are also introduced to many of the important concepts that enriched geography through the valiant works by I think Padaya sir talked about Dr. B. Subbarao, an eminent archaeologist, or for that matter, F.J. Richards, M. Wheeler, and he also talked about H.D. Sankalia. All these eminent archaeologists have made serious attempts to to bring geography and archaeology together for a deeper understanding of India's social reality and taking us back to the stories that are buried and are yet untold. Thank you, sir. We are grateful to you for not only chairing the session, but speaking so eloquently about this program that we are organizing on this auspicious day, Science Day today, and IIG's maiden attempt to begin this Pune dialogue, which we have been thinking for very long, but it could materialize today. And not only that, we would also like to continue this dialogue many times, at least once a year, with the blessings of Professor K.R. Dikshit, who mooted this idea. And I'm so thankful to Professor Dikshit, who is present today, and he must be a very happy person today to see some of his ideas taking shape and taking shape concretely. Perhaps we will have more occasions like this where we can meet together at a particular place, few of us, and discussing many of those issues, ticklish issues, like the issue we were just now discussing about the epics and their archaeological corroborations, issues that may not bring us anywhere, not give us concrete ideas, but discussing them and getting things clarified is perhaps more important through debates and through discussions, something that IIG has cherished all the while in from the very existence of it some 50 years back. We are also grateful to Dr. Satish Naik, who was the attraction of today's meeting, who spoke so beautifully and so poetically about the evolution of agriculture as it diffused from one part of the world to the other part of the world, and one part of the country to the other part of the country, these are stories which cannot be ignored. And if I remember one of the statements of B. Subbarao in his book, Personality of Geography, that geography without history is like a picture without a frame. That's perhaps one of the opening statements that he made. And Dr. Satish Naik's lecture today only justifies what Dr. Subbarao said once regarding the importance of history and archaeology in geographical understanding. I am extremely thankful to all the participants who are present here for very long. At one point of time, it crossed 120, and there are fewer present now. But this lecture has been so exciting that it attracted the attention of so many scholars, very eminent geographers and other scholars who are present and were listening to you intensely for more than an hour. And that itself is an indication of how much importance they accorded to this lecture, which has been brilliant to say the least. So thank you all the participants, all those who attended this online meeting. We are sure that with this strength, we'll only carry forward our task of debates, discussions, and such occasions will certainly be coming far more frequently. We also request all your active participation in all the events that are being organized by IIG. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jai Bhai. Thank you, IIG. And I think we should meet more frequently.